Today we're going to continue with vid busting. We'll be testing a number of different videos. Some of your favorites will be there, like cheap versus expensive, but we'll also be testing how to open Coca-Cola correctly without it fizzing everywhere. So these longer videos will be very similar to the short ones we do, except you'll actually just be able to sit back, relax and watch them all in one go, with a little bit of extra space on the side as well. So with that being said, let's take a look at our first video, which shows us how to open a can of Coke without exploding everywhere after it's shaken up. Right, let's check out our first video. Okay, we've got Steve Spangler. Goat, so he knows what he's talking about.
To it. It does nothing. Watch
so
this.
Just tap the sides. Okay.
Listen. Hear that? Snap the bubbles off the side.
There,
go all the way around like
so
this.
Tapping all the sides to get all the bubbles from the top.
Pop it open.
Oh, it seems to work. So just in case you missed it from that video, essentially what he's saying is, usually when you have a shaken can like this, people say you tap the top and that will help bring all the bubbles up there, so you can release it all at once. But what he's saying is actually doesn't have any basis in science, what he says. You need to tap the sides because that's where the bubbles will travel up from. Now, I do actually agree with him on this. I do think that's going to move the bubbles up. It's just whether that actually affects when you open it or not, whether it fizzes everywhere. So we'll do a couple tests and we'll find out actually what the best way to avoid getting a can to fizz everywhere will be. So, yeah. Got a fizz containment zone set up. Let's get our Coke in there. Obviously, this is just a fish tank that we're using as a containment area for our stuff. So let's start out with a very shaken can first that we do nothing to get our control for what we're trying to avoid. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so that is very, very fizzy, obviously. Right, so this is our top tapping test. So we've shaken it. Let's tap the top a number of times. And now let's open it and see what happens. So in 3, 2, 1. That seemed to work quite well. Right, and this is our side tapping one. So let's tap the side. So in 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Oh, no, look, that's fizzing more. That fizzed more over the top than our top tapping one did, actually. Right, so we've got some interesting results there. I'm not sure how I feel about that. What we saw was when we tapped the side, we actually agitated the liquid more, and it meant it foamed over slightly more than it did when we just tapped the top. Now, in fact, if you noticed on the control that I did, I actually had it tilted sideways. There's a reason for this. When you open it straight up like this, I don't think you need to tap anywhere on these drinks. I think you can just open them straight away, and it should not fizz. I mean, it's designed to open quick enough that it doesn't fizz over. Now, that might be because of the elevation we're in. Obviously, in the UK here, we're not very high up, so that might be helping with the pressure, being near sea level. I don't know. With that being said, I'll meet the pavement to the road without our fizz box. I will open these, shake them up, open them for all my equipment everywhere, and I can guarantee you they're not going to fizz anywhere because it's about what I believe this is about is how quick you open it and making sure that it's not tilted. You don't want the liquid near the top. The gas has to release first and then the liquid beneath. So if you do that, I don't think you ever have to worry about this fizzing up. I think the most important thing, on a level surface and opening it very quickly. If you open it slowly, that's when you start to see potentially it fizzes up. But if you open it very quickly, I think it should be right. So let's shake these up. I'm on a flat surface and I'm going to open it very quickly. It shouldn't fizz up, theoretically. Because it's just release that air at the top and not all come out with the water. The problem is, when you have it like that, and what you've got now is your air pressure is kind of wherever the bubble is. Obviously, it's not right up to the top, you can hear. As long as that bubble is at the top when you open it, you should be fine, as long as you open it quick enough. Now, that's a theory anyway. And then I just don't think it matters if you hit the sides, hit the top, hit the bottom, do whatever you want. I think it's about this. This is the important thing. So, in 3, 2, 1, look, I've shaken it. We'll let it settle for a second. In 3, 2, 1. So I hate to do this to my boy Steve, but I don't think he's actually onto something there. I think the most important thing here is that you're on a level surface and you open it quick enough. I think this will work in all circumstances. I don't think you need to tap it anywhere, but just make sure the most important thing, 1, that it has that little bit of space on the top of the drink and you can hear when you shake it. 2, it's a flat surface. And 3, you do it quick enough. If you do those things, you should be able to open a can and never have to worry. Now, that's a can of Coca-Cola. I don't know about beers and other drinks that are slightly different fizz quantities. Let's check out our next video, okay? Cheap versus expensive crayons. Okay, so they got the Crazart for the cheap. Crayolas are pretty cheap. That's our cheap option today, at least. I don't know what Crazart is. Maybe they're extra cheap. Okay, coverage is not looking good. Not looking good, Brev. Okay. Adding a bit of shading in. Nice. Very cool. outline, and you've got to go in for the outlines as well, yeah. It's quite a long video. How long is this going to take? Come on. Do they not show this, the expensive? Okay. Didn't quite get to the expensive, but that being said, we're going to do both. So we've got cheap versus expensive crayons now. Now, I know you're probably saying these oil pastels aren't technically crayons, but the way I thought of it is it's a drawing wax. It's wax media that's used for drawing. I think oil pastel is just a fancy word for crayon. I think they're very similar. The wax will differ slightly, but that's what makes it expensive and that's what makes it cheap. So, yeah, that's my theory. So to cover the basics first, for our cheap option here, we paid £2 for all these colours. And for our expensive option, we paid £6, and it's only a few colours compared. So in the spirit of thoroughness, we've got a few tests we'll cover today. The first one being how long will they last? I'll show you that's quite a fun test. The second one being a coverage test, how well they actually cover some paper, and we'll just look at an A4 for that. And finally, we'll just look at how well they actually draw, shading, all these sorts of fun things. So let's get started with our durability test. So what we're going to do here is press our crayon against this sander, and we'll see how quickly each one goes down to around just before my hand. So obviously not to catch a hand on it. So let's start off with cheap in 3, 2, 1. Right, let's try the expensive in 3, 2, 1. So with that being said, we're going to have to check the results of that test afterwards in editing. I'm not sure exactly. I think it was pretty close, although I did feel like this was like holding off better than our cheap one. But again, like I said, we'll have to check in editing. Moving on, let's do our next test, which will look at coverage on a piece of paper. So we're going to switch camera positions now. So we're going to set this up now. We'll just tape this paper down so it doesn't move. So I'll edit them together, but we'll do one at a time so we can use the right hand. So in 3, 2, 1. So I think we can quite clearly see who the winner on this one is. It's much, much thicker, the coverage. It's much better. Although we probably did use a bit more of the crayon, and we did ended up, or oil pastel, but we did end up with these sort of bits here as well. You've got to be careful. But yeah, you can see the difference is drastic, and we tried to do these as quick as possible. For our final test, let's see what sort of blending we can do on this picture here. Right, so granted my colouring in skill needs a bit of work, I do think that the expensive was easier to blend, and I think you can see that on the end result. Obviously, bearing in mind I do need a bit of practice. I do feel like the marks blend over nicer, and overall you just get a slightly better finish. I found that it stopped blending at some point on the Crayola. So yeah, bear that in mind. I do think the expensive did better here. Right, so now we've done a few tests on these, let's decide which one is actually worth the money. And I've got to say, I do think expensive is actually fairly priced in at £6 for these. It's not too bad at all. And I think obviously with cheap, it's a well-known brand, so they're adding a little bit of extra price on that, considering the type of wax that they use. But overall, yeah, I do think this is, again, priced in for what it is. It's for kids, and it's, you know, a little fun little drawing tool. Like, it's not a very serious art material here, which this kind of presents more serious. So, but rather than make a decision now, let me know who you think won. Very cool. So are double stuffed Oreos really double stuffed? Let's find out. So the premise on this one is really simple. Does this double stuffed Oreo really contain double the stuffing to this normal Oreo? Well, we're going to find that out now. We're going to test this using this scientific scale. We'll measure a cookie on its own, and then we'll measure the difference between the two, and we'll really see, is it really double stuffed? So let's start off by weighing a cookie on its own. So we've got a normal Oreo cookie here. This is not the double stuffed cookie. So let's just place a single cookie on the scale and see what we read. Now let's weigh the double stuffed one and the single stuffed one and see what difference we get in weight. So our first weigh-in is going to be the single stuffed. So let's see what we get. Are we at 0? Yep. Okay. So we're at 11.09 for our single stuffed Oreo. Now I've got a double stuffed one there, you can see. So in 3, 2, 1. We at 0? Yep. Okay, so it's 14.20. I'm going to have to do the maths and come back to you, and I'll tell you whether we are actually there or not. So this is the math that I've worked out. A single cookie is 4.05 grams. I mistakenly said 9.05. So it's 4.05 grams. 2 cookies then would be 8.1 grams. So a single Oreo in weight is 11.05 grams. Minus 8.1 grams gives us 2.95 grams on a single cookie worth of cream. Now to see if we get double the amount of cream in the double cream Oreos. The double cream Oreo weighs 14.15 grams. We then minus 8.1 for the 2 cookies, and that leaves us with 6.05 grams of cream in the double stuffed Oreo, meaning that we get more than double the amount of cream in the double stuffed Oreo. So well done, Oreo. So how many stuffings is that? Someone let me know what the name for that would be, because I can't really imagine what that is. I think you got to eat it like that, like bite it down, because don't think that will work like that. Okay, let's just try this. Oh my god. That's a lot of cream. It definitely changes the Oreo experience there, I've got to say. This is like eating a piece of cake that's just frosting, and then you've got like a little biscuit. Let's just eat the other half. Right, so that just about wraps up another episode of VidBusting. Make sure you let me know in the comments if there's any other particular videos or myths you want to see me try and test out. I love checking out your comments. I always read through them all. So we saw how to never fizz a can. I showed you cheap and expensive crayons, and we even made the world's biggest Oreo. Who says we don't do it all? Yeah, so we're going to continue this series. I don't know how often they will come through. I've got some quite big plans, so make sure you stick around and subscribe to never miss these episodes again. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, longer videos, and then short ones in between, as you know by this point. So I think we'll finish on these words. Very cool.